hate, I hate, I hate, I hate, I hate, I hate, I hate vulnerability. We hate vulnerability. We were taught as men to run as far away as we could from vulnerability. We couldn't even talk about being vulnerable. We made snide jokes about the men, the boys in our group that were vulnerable. We used every kind of stupid name and slur to keep this group together, this brotherhood of denial and, strength and no fear and no pain, no gain and all that stuff. I hate vulnerability. And I'm a kind of a vulnerable guy. I think we're all vulnerable, but I think I show my vulnerability more. I've as artists, we've explored those caves of creativity. I consider us cave dwellers. Normal people go about their own day and they go to work and they do their thing, and they'll come home, they'll throw the TV on, they'll eat the junk food, and we all do this. Every single one of us does this. But for creatives, and creativity came a little bit later in our evolution. Creativity, especially artistic people, creatives work after work. Or they work before work. They work on the novel. They work on the song. They work on the play. They work on the film. There's something there. Even though we're all creative, I like to think that we as creatives, there's something about us that makes us different. Not better, not worse, just different. We're weird. We may feel like we're losers. We may feel like we're weirdos or oddities because of what we do. Fine. I accept that. If I am to be some sort of member of this weird tribe, I'm done. I'm in. I'm good. I'm in. All right? We're weird. We like to read, and art itself is an antisocial act if you think about it, because you have to take yourself out of society, out of the groups, out of the intermingling of social life and all the other extrovertedness of the world to work on your painting, to work on your novel. Big blocks of time to be concentrated and focused to work on your art. And it's more than just expression, because we have to edit these things, right? All that said, we have an idea of what vulnerability is, because the blank page is one of the scariest things you work with. Right? The blank page every single day. And I went to a writer's group pre-COVID, and I'll never forget. I went to this writer's group, and after we critiqued a story, we broke for about an hour to drink wine and just talk literature, right? And I'll never forget. I don't know who this guy's name was. I'll never forget him, though. It was one of the first times I was at the group. I sat down with a glass of Cabernet, and he just sat right next to me. And without any kind of introduction, he's like, when it comes down to it, it's just you and the page, man. It's just you and the blank page. And he got up and walked away. And then 2 minutes later, he walked away. I'm like, who was it? Who was this guy that just sat next to me and dropped this life, changing philosophy? But it's absolutely true. And what this is a metaphor for uncertainty. Right? We talked about that before. And liminal space and vulnerability. That's all wrapped up in that line. In the end, it's between you and the blank page. All that other crap, all those theories, all those characters, all that art, all this personality and story that we have, and ego and past, present, future, and all these things that wind down. When it comes down to it, it's you sitting in your seat and working on your art against that blank page, that whiteness, that blankness, that void, right? The void that Nietzsche talks about when you're staring at the void and the void stares at you, right? When it comes down to it, that's death. That's endness, that's blankness, that's voidness, that's uncertainty. What is that? And so we fill that blank page with paint. We cover it up with blank paint, with paint. We cover that silence up with notes and music. We take that blank film and we add our own thoughts and emotions, thinking that it matters. And there's this paradox with art that it matters, but it doesn't. That's one of the paradoxes that we live with as artists, is that what I call an art of futility. Art doesn't feed us. Art doesn't give us nurturing, doesn't give us nutrients. It doesn't, it doesn't quench our thirst. It doesn't keep our bodies going. And it's not made of money. We try to sell it for money, right? But it doesn't fuel us. We don't need art to survive, but we need art to sustain our spirits and our souls. And so, what does this have to do with vulnerability? What I propose is that as artists, we're more used to vulnerability than other people that aren't as creative as us. Everyone's creative, but as artists, we've dealt with, probably at least for a couple years, couple months, but definitely for us midlifers, for a couple decades. So we're used to vulnerability or liminal space. Liminal space is a term that comes from this anthropologist, Van Gennep. I'm blanking on his first name, but Van Gennep came with the term rite of passage in the, I believe it was in the early 30s he wrote the book, and he was studying these tribes, and he realized that there was a pattern to rites of passage, and I'll get into this in another video. But the point is that this liminal space is this space that's the second stage of a rite of passage. The first rite is the departure. The second is this transition, this liminal part. And the third part is the return. And Joseph Campbell used Van Gennep's work as an influence of writing about the hero's journey, because that's what the hero's journey is. Hero's journey is departure, revelation, and return. You look at the Odyssey, you look at any hero's journey from Greek mythology, all throughout mythology, there's the hero's journey. And you can read about this in his book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces. Very popular, very amazing book. What does this have to do with us? We are heroes. We are heroes. We walk the left-hand path, as Joseph Campbell says. We are these counterclockwise men. We are the ones that leave society, that leave the culture to work on our art, to return back and to offer it for the benefit of the tribe, the benefit of the village. And so that's why I call us cave dwellers, because every single day that we work, we leave our lives to plumb the depths of these caves in our minds, to collect the gold, to collect the artifacts that we find, to bring back to our lives, and hopefully to share with the world. We are cave dwellers. We are heroes. We know vulnerability. We know what it's like to go down those caves. And I think one of the challenges we have as midlife men is that we get stuck in those caves, or we lose our way in those caves. That's what blocks are. Blocks are losing our way in the caves, and then we make our way out. And blocks are a natural part of the creativity. We should have blocks because that means we're creating. Blocks are a natural process of this. So when I talk about vulnerability, what I want you to do is understand that you know more about vulnerability and dealing with vulnerability in a creative way. And you can apply that to your life. You can apply that to your life. And I think that you should work on your life to work on your art, as Chekhov said. So you know this. You know vulnerability. And we hate vulnerability. We hate it. Vulnerability will never go away. That blank page will never go away. That cave will never go away. Not just because it's something that's always there, because uncertainty is always there, but because we as cave dwellers have to go into those caves. It's who we are. We're curious. We're creative. We want to create. And this is a form of expression that we have to, it's our lifeblood. It may not help us to breathe and to eat and to drink and to survive, but it sure as heck feels like that. It feels like we need these things to survive. And so going forward, yes, vulnerability sucks. It's part of uncertainty. We just, as men, can't stand vulnerability. We would actually rather work on our art than work on ourselves. I know I have. And I've heard the myth, the false myth, the bad advice of like, well, our art is our therapy. No, therapy is therapy. Our art helps us in certain ways, but it can also be a distraction for others. So going forward, I just want to let you know that you can deal with vulnerability because you have already. Just apply it to your life. Just apply it to your outside life, what I call the civilian life. And down in the comments, let me know, what's your art form? What kind of art form, and what are ways that you've dealt with vulnerability and uncertainty in your art form, right? Whether it's dealing with a blank page or dealing with a block or dealing with a scene in your film that doesn't work, the editorial process. What is your art form, and how do you see yourself dealing with vulnerability within that? Because you can use that to help with your life. It's a reminder for yourself of what you do with your art and how you work on uncertainty, how you work on vulnerability in your own art. All right? Take care. Create and complete.